Advaitam Sarvadutam Prijna Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahaganath Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gorenge Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Pititanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 1, texts 4 through 14, together. Attashura Maheshvasa Bhimarjuna Samayudhi Yuyudano Viratascha Drupadascha Maharataha. Translation. Here in this army, there are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna. There are also great fighters like Yuyudana, Virata, and Drupada. Text 5. Drista Ketush Chekitana Kashirajascha Viryavan Purujit Kunti Bojascha Shaibhyascha Narapungava. Translation. There are also great, heroic, powerful fighters like Dristaketu, Chekitana, Kashiraj, Purujit, Kunti Boja, and Shaibya. Text 6. Yudhamanyuscha Vikranta Uttamaujascha Viryavan Saubhadro Dropadeyascha Sarva Eva Maharataha. Translation. There are the mighty Yudhamanyu, the very powerful Uttamauja, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters. Text 7. Asmakam tu vishishtaye tani bodhad vijotamam nayaka mama sanyasya samyartam tan bravimite. Translation. O best of the Brahmanas, for your information, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. Text 8. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Samitinjaya Ashvatthama Vikarnascha Saumadatis Tathaivacha. Translation. There are personalities like yourself, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashvatthama, Vikarma, and the son of Somadatta called Bhurishrava, who are always victorious in battle. Text 9. Anyecha bahava shura mad arte tyakta jivitaha nana shastra praharana sarve yudha visharadaha. Translation. There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science. Text 10. Aparyaptam tad asmakam balam bhishma birakshitam paryaptam tvidam etesham balam bhima birakshitam. Translation. Our strength is immeasurable, and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. Text 11. Ayaneshu cha sarveshu yata bhagam avastita bhishmam eva birakshantu bhavanta sarva evahi. Translation. Now all of you must give full support to Grandfather Bhishma, standing at your respective strategic points in the phalanx of the army. Text 12. Tasya sanjanayan harsham kuru vridha pitamaha simha nadam vinadyochai shankam dadmau pratapavan. Translation. Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly like the sound of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. Text 13. Tata shankascha beryascha panavanaka gomuka sahasaiva yahanyanta sashabdastumalo bhavat. Translation. After that, the conch shells, bugles, trumpets, drums, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous. Text 14. Tata shvetar hayer yukte mahati shandane stitau madhava pandavastraiva divyau shankar pradad matahu. Translation. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. Back to text 4. Text 4, and I'll read the translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Here in this army, there are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna. There are also great fighters like Yudhana, Virata, and Drupada. Purport. Even though Drishtadyumna was not a very important obstacle in the face of Dronacharya's very great power in the military art, there were many others who were the cause of fear. They are mentioned by Duryodhana as great stumbling blocks on the path of victory, because each and every one of them was as formidable as Bhima and Arjuna. He knew the strength of Bhima and Arjuna, and thus he compared the others with them. So we're at the beginning stages of the Bhagavad Gita, as it is the most important book of all time. And this is the most important book for every man. This book is vital for every man, woman, and child. So we're at the very beginning stages. So as we make our way through this book, may we just get more realizations and more and not take it for granted, and really just as we make our way through this book, let's really enjoy it and get a lot out of it. So it starts with Dhritarashtra saying, "O Sanjaya, after assembling in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do, being desirous to fight?" So Dhritarashtra was blind from birth, and he was brothers of Pandu, and Pandu, that's where the Pandavas come from, is Pandu. And Dhritarashtra did not want Pandu. Dhritarashtra always wanted to be king, and he was blind, and so he could not be king. But he had kind of a lot of competition with Pandu, and even at one point, Dhritarashtra was going to have a child, Duryodhana, and Duryodhana stayed in the womb for so long that, because Dhritarashtra was thinking, oh, this son will be born, maybe he will be able to take over, be king and take over the kingdom, and just would not come out of the womb for so long. and Pandu. The five Pandavas we usually mention that we talk about are Yudhisthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadev. And Yudhisthira, they all had amazing births, mystical births from demigod birth. They even had a long lost brother that we'll find out about later, Karna. It was someone that their mother, Kunti, she had a special power to summon a demigod and have a child with that demigod, even at the young age of 16, when she first gave birth to Karna with the sun god. And so she was not able to take care of this child, so she put him down the river. So Karna got put down the river. Karna got put down the river, which sounds pretty similar to some other stories we might have heard that come later in different religious traditions. The story of Noah, where he was put down the river. So Karna was put down the river, and he never knew, for a long time, he never knew who his family was. He was actually reunited on before the battle. He was reunited and with his mother Kunti, and then he realized, oh, I'm going to fight my brothers. But he had the chance to change sides, and he didn't, because he was so loyal to Duryodhana. Duryodhana is the son of Dhritarashtra, and he's the king, the unworthy king, where the Pandavas, it's actually their land. They should be they're entitled to it, but there's a lot of usurping power. And I mean, these are amazing stories that go so deep in all the relationships, and it's like an amazing transcendental soap opera. And so Dhritarashtra is saying, "Oh Sanjaya, what did my sons," by the way, he had 100 sons, Dhritarashtra did, and one of Bhima's vows was, I'm going to kill Bhima was so mad. They've been exiled. The Pandavas have been exiled in the forest for 15 years. And Bhima, and of course Draupadi, their wife, was very disgraced in the assembly hall, forced to strip naked, and her hair was untethered, and so many insults hurled her way. And so Bhima and all of the Pandavas are very angry, but Bhima has been fuming, and he said, I'm going to kill every one of Dhritarashtra's 100 sons. And he also, one person, said, who was it that said, you can sit on my lap. And so Bhima said, I'm going to break his thigh. So he was very angry. There was even another person, he said, I'm going to rip his heart out. So a lot of anger has been building up, and rightfully so. When we're stepped on, we can only be stepped on, if someone talks about Krishna negatively, or if someone does something against Guru or another Vaishnav, we can only take so much, so we all have our limits. And although we are very tolerant, don't mistake our kindness for weakness, right? So Dhritarashtra said, oh Sanjaya. So Sanjaya is right there. And he was the student of Vyasadeva. So he had special power to really see the whole event, even though it was happening not right. He had to see it. He could see it almost like a TV. He could see everything that was happening. And then text 2, Sanjaya says, O king, after looking over the army gathered by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and began to speak the following words. So Duryodhana is talking to Drona. Duryodhana is talking to Drona. And Drona was actually born in like a pot, a clay pot, an earthen pot. Because Drona, his father, saw an aspera, and some of his essence fell into the pot. And so Drona was born in a pot like that. And Arjuna was his greatest student. And but he was gonna fight on the other side. Again, he's showing allegiance to Dhritarashtra and to Duryodhana. Arjuna was his greatest student. You remember the story about, Arjuna, shooting the eye of the bird, right? Where he said he had all the students around and he said, all right, everyone try to shoot the eye of the bird in the tree, and this mechanical bird, or I forget if it's mechanical or a real bird, but so everyone's, and then Drona would say, what do you see? And one person would say, I see the trees and I see the bird. And he would say, okay, shoot, and missed. The next person, what do you see? I see the bird. Okay, shoot. And they shoot and they miss with their arrow again. But Arjuna comes up and they say, Arjuna, what do you see? He says, I only see the eye of the bird. Shoots it, gets it. And Arjuna has many wonderful stories with his bow. In fact, how he won Draupadi, and the father of Draupadi had some tough challenges to win over. So you had to string this bow that was almost impossible. This bow that was almost impossible to string, and then he had to shoot the eye of the fish, but only he had to shoot the fish, but only from the reflect. He could only look at the reflection in the water of the fish, something like that. Very tricky, amazing bowmanship, the greatest archer in the world. So that's Sanjaya. And so Duryodhana is talking to Drona. And by the way, Drupada and Drona are enemies. So Drupada, and because Drupada was he was a prince, and Drona was really poor. But they went to the same schooling growing up. They went to the same Gurukul. And so at one point, and when they were boys, Drupada said, even though he's rich, he said, someday when we're grown up, I'm going to give you half my land. I'm going to give you half of the kingdom. And so Drona kind of remembered that. And then much later, his son did not even have milk to drink. So he said, gosh, we're so poor, we can't even get some milk for my son. So he went to Drupada and said, do you remember what you said about half the kingdom and all that? And then Drupada did not show him respect. He said, well, who is this? I don't know you. You're not my friend. I don't know anything about that. So Drona was this great teacher. And so for his guru Dakshin, he said, please just bring me Drupada. Bring me Drupada. And so let's see here. And Drupada is father of Draupadi and Drishtadyumna. Drishtadyumna. So Drupada was forced to give. Drupada was brought to Drona by his students, and so he was forced to give half the land. So obviously Drupada is pretty angry, and so he took out he got a boon, or he did a ritual where the result was that he wanted to have a son that would kill Drona eventually. And so this was Drishtadyumna. Now, Drishtadyumna also studied under Drona. So even though Drona knew this was probably going to happen someday, Brahmin like that, he taught him. He's willing to teach him. So pretty amazing to teach the person that's eventually potentially going to take your life like that. So in this text 3, O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. So they're talking about Drishtadyumna. And this talk, the way Duryodhana is talking to Drona, don't just think it's merely informative. It's a little manipulative. You know, he's trying to, he's trying to lead him to think certain ways, and eventually other people are going to gather around. Bhishma and the other warriors are going to gather around, and so he's choosing every word very carefully. Obviously, people were very intelligent, so he's choosing every word very carefully, and even the order of the names is important. You know, the first name mentioned having a little more, like later when he says in text 8, he says, there are personalities like yourself, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwatthama, Vikarna. And so he lists him first. You know, if you list him last, he doesn't feel so good. You know, it's like, oh yeah, and you too. He lists him first. So he's expressing some things subconsciously and consciously, and he's showing some fears, and things are being revealed. And text 4, here in this army there are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna. There are also great fighters like Yuyudhana, Virata, and Drupada. Now Drupada is being mentioned here in text 3 and text 4. Why? That's to incite anger. That's to get him fired up. So Drona's big enemy is Drupada, and he keeps mentioning Drupada, even though they're on the same. Well, Drupada is on the Pandavas' side, obviously. So these are the Pandavas here. These are the people on the Pandavas' side. Bhima, Arjuna, Yuyudhana, Virata, and Drupada. So he's mentioning the other side, and he's getting him pretty fired up. And I'll read the purport again. Even though Drishtadyumna was not a very important obstacle in the face of Dronacharya's very great power in the military art, there were many others who were the cause of fear. They are mentioned by Duryodhana as great stumbling blocks on the path of victory because each and every one of them was as formidable as Bhima and Arjuna. He knew the strength of Bhima and Arjuna, and thus he compared the others with them. Yeah, he was going to break Duryodhana's thigh. Bhima was going to vow to break Duryodhana's thigh. And Dusasana, he vowed to like rip out his heart. So Duryodhana and warriors, love to fight. They're getting a chance also to change sides if they want. That name that was mentioned later in text, where is it? When he mentions in text 8, when he mentions Vikarna, that is, it says in the purport, Duryodhana mentioned the exceptional heroes in the battle, all of whom are ever victorious. Vikarna is the brother of Duryodhana, who is speaking right now. Ashwatthama is the son of Dronacharya, who's listening right now and who's the spiritual and warrior guru. And Somadati or Bhurushrava is the son of the king of the Balikas. Karna is the half-brother of Arjuna, as he was born of Kunti before her marriage with King Pandu. Kripacharya married the twin sister of Dronacharya. So Vikarna is the brother of Duryodhana, but he's also mentioned a little bit to, he's not a great warrior, but it's thought that he was mentioned to kind of build him up a little bit, because it was worried that he would want to change sides. Because in this battle, you can change sides before it starts, but after it starts, you can't change sides, it was said. Because a lot of warriors, they love to fight, but they don't always care so much about which side they're on. So they can have a chance to change sides. And Vikarna, in the assembly hall, when Draupadi was embarrassed, he was the only one out of this group, out of all he was the only one that protested a little bit. He didn't really like it. He was the only one of the Kurus like that protested. Text text 5. There are also great heroic, powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Chaitanya, Kashiraj, Prujit, Kuntibhoja, and Saibya. Text 6. There are the mighty Yudhamanyu, the very powerful Utmajau, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters. So Duryodhana now is listing the warriors on their side. You know, these are Kurus, and so he's trying to pump everyone up a little bit and say, well, we also have some great warriors. Text 7. O best of the Brahmanas, for your information, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. Text 8. There are personalities like yourself, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashvatthama, Vikarma, and the son of Somadatta called Bharishrava, who are always victorious in battle. So Bhishma is listed second. And yeah, his brother is kind of flattering him by mentioning him a little bit. Text 9. There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science. Purport. As far as the others are concerned, like Jayadratha, Kritavarma, Shalya, etc., all are determined to lay down their lives for Duryodhana's sake. In other words, it is already concluded that all of them would die in the battle of Kurukshetra for joining the party of the sinful Duryodhana. Duryodhana was, of course, confident of his victory on account of the above-mentioned combined strength of his friends. But which side is Krishna on? Krishna, of course, is on the Pandavas' side. And wherever Krishna is, victory is guaranteed. Krishna equals victory. Krishna is synonymous with victory. So wherever Krishna is, there will be all victory. And so there, some people on the other side are a little worried. Like, oh, Krishna's over there. This is not so good. Shri Shri Gornatai, Ki Jai. Wherever Krishna is victory. And later, when the conch shell is blown in a subtle way, that also shows, that also is a premonition, foreshadowing of their victory, of the Pandavas' victory. Text 10. Our strength is immeasurable, and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. Purport. Herein an estimation of comparative strength is made by Duryodhana. He thinks that the strength of his armed forces is immeasurable, being specifically protected by the most experienced general, grandfather Bhishma. On the other hand, the forces of the Pandavas are limited, being protected by a less experienced general, Bhima, who is like a fig in the presence of Bhishma. Duryodhana was always envious of Bhima because he knew perfectly well that if he should die at all, he would only be killed by Bhima. But at the same time, he was confident of his victory on account of the presence of Bhishma, who was a far superior general. His conclusion that he would come out of the battle victorious was well ascertained, Prabhupada says. And, you know, I mentioned that just Bhima was going to kill the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra, and even he was given a chance. There was, you know, the other Pandavas had a chance to kill some of those 100 sons, but they knew that was Bhima's thing. So Bhima was given all of them, was given exactly that. This verse shows that sometimes sometimes a materialist or a demonic person will put their faith in the wrong thing, in materialism and in something other than Krishna. He says, our strength is immeasurable and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. So this is like materialistic knowledge. This is turning away from Krishna. This is the opposite of putting Krishna in the center. And we have to put Krishna in the center, and our lives will be glorious and successful. It's like an outlet. I was thinking about it this week a little bit. It's kind of like an outlet. Materialism and material world. Imagine we're all kind of like a plug, and in material world, we just we just see an outlet and we just want to plug into it. It's like our whole lives, we've been trained a certain way and we've allowed ourselves to be a certain way. So most people, when we see an outlet, plug in, whatever, wherever the wind blows, I'll plug in. But imagine if the only outlet we should plug into is Krishna outlet. That's the special outlet. That's the only one we should plug into. And then we plug into that outlet. And then, or actually it's kind of like a giant surge protector where we were able to plug in by the grace of a Vaishnav that showed us this spiritual knowledge. We were able to plug into their surge protector, their power strip. And so eventually we can become like a power strip. So we're plugged into the power strip, and then eventually we can become a power strip and other people can kind of plug in to what we're doing, and we can show them that's the outlet. That's where we go. There's thousands of other outlets. They don't even exist in our mind. We look away. We look towards the Krishna electricity. That's the power source. That's the source of all power. And it's the source of eternal life, which, with reincarnation and karma, we get reactions for everything we do, and we take birth. We'll take another body after this body is over. The soul will never die, cannot be cut, cannot be moistened, cannot be burnt, cannot be withered. And so we've had a lot of lives, a lot of bodies that we've been in an animal body, we've been all these bodies, maybe demigod body. But we can eventually, if we care about our spiritual life, we can go after the supreme destination, go Loka Vrindavan, and be with Krishna eternally, which is actually where we're from and where we belong. So we belong there. So we have to take our spiritual life very seriously, and we have to surround ourselves with Vaishnavas and spiritual books, and we can't just put anything into our consciousness, because this is a spirituality. It's all about consciousness, Krishna consciousness. And so we have to be very careful with our consciousness. We can't just put anything in. Some of these social media sites, they can be used for good, they can be used for bad. You go on Twitter and maybe you follow all Vaishnavas, and so but you can follow, sometimes you get, someone follows you and you say, I'll be nice, I'll follow back. But sometimes you can be scrolling and then you see something surprising that you weren't expecting, and it's like, oh my gosh, So we have to be very careful with these social medias. We have to be very careful with our consciousness, training our consciousness very early, all day, what we're thinking about, our intentions. Every day is kind of like a mini Kurukshetra, where we have our battle to fight a little bit. And will we choose to plug into the Krishna outlet? all day. And so, I mean, it's a gradual process. It can be all at once, or it can be gradual, but always more and more Krishna consciousness. And, you know, someone can be Krishna conscious 95% of the time, but, you know, if they're being abominable the other 5%, it's not so nice. Krishna sees that, and he says, well, I appreciate that 95%, but, you know, you're doing abominable behaviors. And so that's, you know, they say even a drop of poison, you know, you can drink a big glass of water, the smallest drop of poison. I mean, there's poison in that water, so you don't want to drink it. So that's how vulnerable and how much we have to protect our consciousness and those around us. And so that's text 10, a materialistic kind of fantasy from Duryodhana. Text 11. Now, all of you must give full support to Grandfather Bhishma, standing at your respective strategic points in the phalanx of the army. A phalanx is a very tight military formation. Everyone's also the plural of phalanx is phalanges. So like our fingers are called phalanges, digits, they're digital. So they're called phalanges. So you can see they're very tight together like that. It's the phalanx of the army. Purport. Duryodhana, after praising the prowess of Bhishma, further considered that others might think that they had been considered less important. So in his usual diplomatic way, he tried to adjust the situation in the above words. He emphasized that Bhishma Dev was undoubtedly the greatest hero, but he was an old man, so everyone must especially think of his protection from all sides. He might become engaged in the fight, and the enemy might take advantage of his full engagement on one side. Therefore, it was important that other heroes would not leave their strategic positions and allow the enemy to break the phalanx. Duryodhana clearly felt that the victory of the Kurus depended on the presence of Bhishma Dev. He was confident of the full support of Bhishma Dev and Dronacharya in the battle because he well knew that they did not even speak a word when Arjuna's wife, Draupadi, in her helpless condition, had appealed to them for justice while she was being forced to strip naked in the presence of all the great generals in the assembly. Although he knew that the two generals had some sort of affection for the Pandavas, he hoped that all such affection would now be completely given up by them, as was customary during the gambling performances. So it's interesting going back a little ways when even by Dhritarashtra, making a distinction between the Kurus and the Pandavas, it's kind of like, because it's Kurukshetra. This is a spiritual battle. This is a very spiritual place that they're going to do this battle. And Dhritarashtra is even a little worried of how spiritual this place is known to be. Very spiritual. So he's also thinking this is kind of dangerous, this being in the spiritual place. And by calling them the Pandus and then themselves the Kurus, it's kind of a way to, it's kind of like if the mayor of Kansas City said, kind of made a distinction between Kansas City and UMKC or something, like even though UMKC is part of Kansas City, what if he made it a distinction like it's us, Kansas City versus UMKC? It's like, oh, there's UMKC is a part of Kansas City, but he's making a subtle psychological division that's creating a little bit of animosity and division like that. So when he says, and who was it that wasn't going to fight at all until Bhishma was Dronacharya was not going to fight until Bhishma was killed. Let me find something here. Yeah. Now, while the king, so this is so he just mentioned grandfather Bhishma, and then in text 12, then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly like the sound of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. So instead of responding to Duryodhana's comments, Bhishma simply blows the conch shell and very loudly. And imagine that first loud conch shell. I mean, there's millions of fighters there. They say hundreds of millions gathered on the battlefield. And then you hear this, the conch shell, the first conch shell that will precede the other conch shells. And others had gathered around. So others are kind of gathering before that happened, as Duryodhana was talking, others were gathering around. That is purport. The grandsire of the Kuru dynasty could understand the inner meaning of the heart of his grandson Duryodhana. And out of his natural compassion for him, he tried to cheer him up by blowing his conch shell very loudly, befitting his position as a lion. Indirectly, by the symbolism of the conch shell, he informed his depressed grandson Duryodhana that he had no chance of victory in the battle because the Supreme Lord Krishna was on the other side. But still, it was his duty to conduct the fight, and no pains would be spared in that connection. A small personal note, my last album was called Blue Gold, and it was a tribute to Sri Krishna. Speaking of Krishna, was that he's blue gold. And on the cover, if you ever look at it, the flag is supposed to be Bhima's flag. We tried to recreate Bhima's flag, and there's also an image of Krishna on the front. And you can actually see Bhima's flag in the temple room on that big painting in the corner. You can see Bhima's flag, who has the image of a lion on it with eyes of lapis lazuli, this kind of like blue gold. That's why I chose it, because on Bhima's flag, the lion was supposed to have like eyes of like blue gold. So something like that. Now, text 13. After that, the conch shells, bugles, trumpets, drums, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous. Text 14. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. What a beautiful verse. Tata Shvetar Hayer Yukte Mahati Shandane Stitao Madhava Pandavaschaiva Divyao Shankao Pradad Matu. Purport. In contrast with the conch shell blown by Bhishma Dev, the conch shells in the hands of Krishna and Arjuna are described as transcendental. The sounding of the transcendental conch shells indicated that there was no hope for victory for the other side because Krishna was on the side of the Pandavas. Jayastu Pandu Putranam Yesham Pakshe Janardana. Victory is always with persons, with the sons of Pandu, because Lord Krishna is associated with them. And whenever and wherever the Lord is present, the goddess of fortune is also there, because the goddess of fortune never lives alone without her husband. Therefore, victory and fortune were awaiting Arjuna, as indicated by the transcendental sound produced by the conch shell of Vishnu, or Lord Krishna. Besides that, the chariot on which both the friends were seated was donated by Agni, the fire god, to Arjuna. And this indicated that this chariot was capable of conquering all sides wherever it was drawn over the three worlds. What a chariot, donated by the fire god. So this is no ordinary battle, with chariots donated, with a chariot donated by a demigod, and so many wonderful things happening, because of course wonderful things are happening. Lord Sri Krishna is there. and very exciting. Does anyone have any comments or questions tonight? Yes, Jagannath, Prabhu.
I just wanted to say that that was a really nice lecture today. I really like the detail and the points. Um, uh, I wanted to comment about what you were saying on what Krishna told Arjuna in the beginning of or no, what he told him in the Bhagavad Gita on how you should get up and fight. Um, Basically, I was reading in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the pastime between Vritrasura and King Indra, and in that pastime, there's Vritrasura is like a huge demon. He's like so big. He's as big as a mountain, and he's fighting King Indra. And it was saying that Vritrasura was actually a devotee of Krishna, so he was real learned in the philosophy and all that, and all this. And Vritrasura, he was telling King Indra that because King Indra was kind of hesitating. I don't remember why, but he was hesitating to fight Vritrasura, maybe because he was afraid or something. And Vritrasura told him like, "Don't be afraid, just do your duty," you know. And in some of the purports, Srila Prabhupada especially stressed on this point about fighting and how if one needs to fight, he should fight. And if one is presented with an opportunity to um, die for a higher cause, he should take it without hesitation. So it's really it's kind of scary, but it's also really eye opening. It like incites that hero in all of us when if somebody's blaspheming Krishna or the Vaishnavas, then we have permission to get angry and fight, whether that's with words or with with physical force. So thank you. What is that? Bhagavad Gita as it is, ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.